take mine.
Thanks very much for the time, Duncan. I appreciate it.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, no, thanks for doing this. It's great.
First thing I want to ask you about is obviously because you've got so much work with not just your solo project, but with Maximo Park and then other kind of side projects you've done. How do you decide when and how to kind of choose where you want to put your creative energy, if you will? Kind of how do you decide, especially when it comes to a solo project, how do you decide, right, this is time for me to kind of shut down everything else and just dedicate time to myself and kind of my own specific project?
Yeah, I mean, it tends to kind of be after we sort of do a Maximo album, or say once the album's out. During that time, say when we're touring and stuff, I have a lot of kind of time where I'm thinking about other projects and things, you know. So it tends to be after a Maximo record is done. But sometimes I'll be writing over a long period of time. So if I get a couple of weeks here or there, I'll continue working on one project, or I'll juggle a couple at the same time to keep it fresh, you know. And then I think with this project, I had probably about 2 albums worth of songs, and then I figured out, okay, these all sort of seem to fit together. You know, there's definitely a theme and a feel to these, and sometimes it almost reveals itself the more you do what it wants to be about, you know. And similar with the sounds, getting something that's dynamic enough. But I sort of, yeah, it tends to be around Maximo Park, and then, you know, when we've sort of finished writing and recording a record, then I feel like I have some time to then think about other things. Yeah.
I mean, the reason I asked you because I was reading, it was like, I think it was a press release. You mentioned that you kind of, this album was born out of kind of a desire to kind of distance yourself from the world, especially the internet, kind of those kind of things.
Yeah.
And to create something that kind of, it was, I guess, it resonated with people who were kind of, who wanted music kind of more like back in the day in the 90s, when we weren't so much kind of, not this kind of this snack era where everyone just kind of jumps on Spotify, listens to 30 seconds of one track and then 30 seconds of another one. This album really feels like you wanted to kind of people to experience music how they used to do back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with albums like that, you know, and I think the anticipation of waiting for a record and then going and buying it at a shop or getting a CD or a cassette when I was younger, you know, and yeah, I definitely had that in mind. And I think I was thinking consciously about sort of who I perhaps was as a person before the group, and tapping back into, imagine if I wasn't even in a group and I just wanted to make a record that of the sounds that I wanted to hear, and perhaps, you know, the sort of stuff that I grew up with. So it's definitely got an album feel in mind where you can go from the beginning to the end and you've been on this sort of this path, you know. And so yeah, it's very, very true what you say. It's, yeah, I just kind of wanted it to be kind of creative and an interesting thing that hopefully would grow over time and listens, you know.
At the same time, the last single, the single you just released before the album came out, it was very much about kind of speaking up for yourself, because people aren't able to speak up to themselves, and they kind of pretend that everything's kind of going okay and everyone's okay. Would you say that the album was also kind of born out of that? Was that a reason why you used that kind of as a harbinger for the album? You kind of released it just like a week before the album came out?
Yeah, I think it's it's a lot to do with that, where you, and also that, like, you know, backing off from being online, because you just find yourself being sucked into, it's almost like a controlled way of thinking, like, oh, we all must do this, we all have to sell ourselves, or you know, it's a kind of, it's this weird construct that is kind of addictive as well. And I think when you step away from that and just you know, just go back into sort of using your own imagination instead of feeding off other people's, I guess, you then, you know, a world opens up again. You remember, oh yeah, of course, you know, there's so much going on with, well, not only things at home, but like in nature and everything else, where you take it in differently as a human, you know. And I guess part of it was to do with you know, people close to me struggling with certain things, and I recognized that in, you know, some of my own experiences. So I thought, well, I find myself just writing about them naturally. So it's very kind of, it naturally came about that I wanted to write about, yeah, perhaps those of us who are not so forward with, perhaps, being in front of a screen all the time and, doing small videos for people or whatever,
At the same time, you mentioned there that you had kind of 2 albums worth material that felt, and kind of the songs that you picked out of those felt very much like a cohesive album. But at the same time, and I was reading that you were very much inspired by a specific book, Gaston Bachelard's The Poetics of Space, which is very much a kind of about phenomenology, about the experiences that people get from living in certain places, or people design architecture or art in your case, kind of to create experiences for people. So I'm quite curious, did that idea come before these songs that you wrote, or was that when you had all these songs, you decided which ones felt more cohesive to kind of fit in with that experience that you wanted to create?
Well, it sort of came in during the process of writing, and I think I was still finding my way with the songs, and just the idea that they are like rooms. Songs are like rooms, and they are, the idea that they are, each one can be different, and you can have a different perspective in the same way that we have different moods, and we have some days, you're feeling good about things, and other days there might be more contemplative or whatever. You might be sort of stuck in a kind of bit of a rut or something, and often music is a good way to kind of stream a lot of this stuff. And I think, I think I love that literal idea of a song being a space you walk into and then walk out of again, and then the next song is you're in another space, and it might be, I think as well, having a dog, I go for dog walks a lot, with her. And I think just over the past few years, because I never had a dog before, but like my whole family's like, well, we need a dog, so, and I ended up being the one looking after it, so I've spent a lot more time with nature. And Newcastle's is quite blessed really, because there's a lot of green areas, and then we're close to the sea, so there's a lot of kind of reconnecting in a way with the outside world. And I think that again is like another space in which you're like, yeah, this is and I'm reading that book and relating it to these different areas, and I could see that in the songs. It just suddenly became very organic, the way it all made sense in a way, and I was able to bring the songs together.
So anybody looking to get out there with their music, you definitely recommend getting hold of a dog or two now to go on walks.
Yeah, I think it does you the world of good, for sure.
Yeah. Brilliant. I mean, like I said before, that it felt almost like a middle finger to people who jump on Spotify and just listen to like 10-20 seconds of songs and things like that. And like you said there, you want these songs to be different experiences, like different experiences we have throughout the days or in different places we're going through. So I'm quite curious, did you also write the music kind of thinking how you wanted people to listen to the songs, not in the way that people do nowadays, but also kind of the way that we used to, and maybe hopefully draw some people kind of back into that way of listening to songs and kind of resonating with them and feeling them, experiencing them more than the way that we used to do, compared to how people kind of take songs for granted, if you will, nowadays.
Yeah, I think there's definitely elements to that, because I remember being told, like, about Spotify, that artists, particularly the big pop acts, has originally they would have an intro, they would shorten the intro to a song, and then suddenly it'd just be a little motif, and then suddenly it's straight into the song. There's no intro, that you need to get to the chorus within 20 seconds type thing, and because you need to get them in the first 30 seconds. And the idea of having to kind of shape your songs for Spotify or for streaming or for a shorter attention span is, I think it does, it harms the music, because then all of it becomes super generic. I mean, some people are great at it, and there's obviously a craft to that, but and there's some things I think, wow, that's super clever, and so I don't, if people choose to do that, that's fine. But I think as well, wanting to let the songs be the sort of the kind of master of, you sort of follow the song. We often say in our band, like, the song's kind of the king or the queen or whatever, and you kind of you go with what that needs. And if it's going to be a long intro and it's not going to get picked up or played on anything, then so be it. It's more important to have the songs and the songs to last and have a meaning that's a bit deeper than perhaps where society currently is, you know, and that may change again, where people get sick of that and they want something with a bit more depth to it, or, you know, that takes time to listen. And yeah, so in a way, it is anyone who does maybe want to have a breather from that constant instant thing. It definitely has those people in mind for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I mentioned the book there before, that you were kind of inspired by Gaston Bachelard's book, which talks about how you experience architecture and places the way you are. So I'm quite curious how the recording process was for this one, and how much
Yeah.
that where you recorded it kind of informed the songs in the end, compared to maybe, say, for example, Georgia, where you recorded the last Maximo Park album.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a lot more DIY. So I did a lot more recording myself. But just before, one of the catalysts for it was I went with, well, Tom, the drummer from Maximo Park, and a friend of mine, Andrew. I'd heard about this recordist in Northern Ireland called Julie McLarnon, and she used to work at Strawberry Studios with Martin Hannett, you know, who did all the Joy Division and sort of New Order stuff. So she'd set up her own studio with a real tape machine over there, and it was in the countryside. And I just thought, I'll find out a bit more about her, because I'd quite like to go somewhere and just at least do a couple of songs, you know, because the budget was pretty small. So I went across, and we ended up doing about 4 songs, because we were sort of well kind of rehearsed, well enough, so there was also a bit of a song called Swim, basically, and a song called Bright Fields. So I kind of taught the guys enough of the song so that it wasn't like overplayed, and then we can kind of have a bit of fun with it. So, and then we did a couple of other tracks with her. 2 of them are on an EP, and actually there's one unreleased thing which is kind of more folky, but that might come out later. But yeah, just going over there and sort of seeing the countryside and being there for about 4 or 5 days, that was just kind of great. And I think I wanted to be over there because I mean, my mum's family, going back a little bit, is originally from Galway, and I remember going to visit. We're actually going again this year because she's got her Irish passport and she wants to go through the customs and go, yeah, you know. So we're going back to Galway actually, but I just, yeah, there was something I felt very sort of there's something about the place that really, I just felt like, oh, wouldn't it be great to record something here? I don't know, it was something just clicked. So to do that was great. And then I came back and I thought, okay, right, I've got a few songs ready. And then most of the rest of it was either done at my house or at the rehearsal studio. So I sort of I've learned how to record over the years, really, and recorded, you know, quite a few Maximo things and my solo stuff. So yeah, I just went in and got a few friends involved as well on a few songs where I needed a bit of you know, another mind on it, or some backing vocals, or a different kind of bass playing or whatever, you know. So yeah, that sort of thing. And that was a bit more, I think, once I knew, okay, well, I've got 2 or 3, then I'll write a whole load more. And then I think I had something that was maybe a bit almost like probably quite upbeat, but then I thought it's not really reflecting where I am, and I continued to write, and then it just became a more real and more realistic to where I am at the moment. So I thought that's the kind of record I want to put out, one that's kind of a bit more just a bit more thoughtful, I guess. So that's hopefully I've explained that all right there.
No, perfectly. But I mean, at the same time, you obviously mentioned you took your distance away from things, and you were out in the country a lot more. But at the same time, this feels like the kind of the heaviest music you've done so far. Why so? I mean, in such a kind of a calming place, how did you end up writing probably kind of some of your heaviest, darkest songs so far?
It's okay. It's fine, not fine, not real fine.
I think that the heavier sound came from me, again, looking back to perhaps where I was before I started Maximo Park. I definitely, I mean, the friends that I used to sort of jam with from home are all kind of art students, and often experiment quite a lot and go a lot darker as well with the sound. And coming from Derby, most people I knew were sort of into heavier, darker music. So that kind of seeped back in a bit. I was like, oh yeah, we used to listen to, you know, a lot heavier stuff. And but yeah, I suppose you know, some of the sort of maybe heavier themes or darker themes are related to sort of you know, without saying too much, like people who are close to me went through some sort of quite difficult things, and partly connected to social media and stuff, which was, you know, played with like mental health and stuff. And one of the reasons that kind of, you know, I stepped away myself was I was like, you know, it's kind of not really doing any of us any good. And I'm sure there's probably good elements, of course, like, but when I use it myself, I'll just post about a song or maybe a picture of a tree or something, and that'll be like, all right, and then I'll just leave it for a bit, and I'll, you know, I almost kind of like do it very quickly and then walk away from it, just to let people know, if you'd like to listen, that's cool, it's something's coming out, you know, whatever. So yeah, so I think it's a reflection of perhaps where I am personally, and certainly where I was over the last couple of years, and then perhaps trying to find, you know, my musical roots a little bit more, going back to, hang on a minute, what was I kind of thinking before all of this, being in a band and all that, you know, as an individual.
And do you get into that mentality where you try to forget that you've ever been, like you said, the kind of what did you listen to, what did you do before you were in a band? Do you try and forget that band mentality when you're writing your own solo stuff? I mean, obviously you mentioned you played with Maximo Park's drummer, and then you also other musicians involved, and you kind of let them, you tried not to kind of force feed them with what you've written, to kind of let the music go its own way, no? But do you kind of consciously make sure that you don't get stuck in that kind of band, I'm in a band rut, when you're making especially when you're making your solo songs?
Yeah, I think the moment I'm not, because I play with in another band, my friend Sarah Nanakino. It's funny, if I'm not with them or playing you know, live shows with them, like with Maximo, the moment I get home, it's almost like a strange dream, like, oh, that didn't really happen, and I'm just back to being myself. And it's all cool, you know, I'm being with everybody, and we're all good friends and that, but there is a point where you need to just do something that's different. And especially we've been together like 20 years, so I think all of us appreciate the kind of like headspace, you know. So yeah, it's funny, the moment I'm not doing it, I almost feel like I'm not in it. I'm just trying to create art in whatever way I can, or whether it be writing or painting or whatever. I kind of feel like, okay, what can I do now? What's the next thing that I can make that, you know? So I'm sort of curious. I'm always curious about what can be made and how I can make it. That's kind of what makes me tick, really.
I mean, you mentioned that you've been with the band, with Maximo Puff, for like, so I think it's 21 years in November. It's the first single originally released now.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of relating to this album, obviously you pretty much produced the whole thing yourself. So I'm quite curious, you've worked with two producers on two occasions before, you've repeated with two. I'm quite curious, is there anything specifically for any of the kind of producers that you worked with before that has stuck with you, that you sat down and said, right, I'm going to use this method or this system for this album specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite geeky, to be honest. If we work with somebody, I kind of pick their brains about like microphones, and sometimes, you know, they just have the most expensive mics, but they'll always say, oh, well, I started with this, or this is a really good alternative. And I often look at how they mic up a drum kit, or what vocal mic they're using, or I'm interested in the guitar sound. So I'm always like looking at the settings of things, and I'll ask, like Ben Allen, I was asking him, you know, I was like, you know, sometimes recording bass is a bit tricky for me. He's like, okay, and he gave me a few tips for that, and like even back to working with Paul Epworth in the early days, he just had this bag full of guitar pedals, and he's just like, just think of them all as like textures, you know, whether it's a metallic thing or it's like really sort of I know, crystallized or something. You want a sound that, you know, or two opposite sounds to go together. And you know, it was sort of thinking, and you know, he would tune the kit sometimes to the key of the song. The drum kit would be tuned so that it was in the same key, or or use a double bass drum, like one after the other, and then put a mic sort of towards the other end of that, and just little tricks that you pick up. And Gil Norton, for example, he wanted me to tune my guitar every take, so retune the guitar so it was perfectly. And it's funny when you listen to some of the Pixies, Doolittle, there's a real cohesiveness of the. And I wonder if he did that as well, So there's little things whereas I would probably let the guitar go out of tune a little bit, so there's a bit of discord. I like the sort of slight discord of things that aren't too pure. So, but all these methods were fascinating, and I was like, okay, well, I don't mind doing this. And I was like, wow, it does create this kind of seamless kind of sound when you do that. And so I'd say that. And Nick, we worked with Nick Lawney, and he was, he'd worked with Nick Cave and people like that, and he had a really sort of, it's almost like he was a musician himself. He was more like a musician in a way. He kind of seemed to think like a musician, in the way that he produced, and it was very laid back in a good way. We were working quickly, but you felt relaxed working with him, And I think with Julie was great because she was similarly, kind of very focused on this analog sound, and I was like, how's she getting that, and that the rounded sound of a kick drum, or I didn't take any guitars with me, and so I think I ended up playing one of her kids' guitars on.
All right.
And Tom was the same. He just used whatever drum kit was there, and the band Lankham had played there, and I was kind of interested in the kind of drony sounds of Lankham and stuff. And so each person I work with, I just kind of asked them about how they get this, or Julie had some synths that were. She had some old gear that belonged to Martin Hannett, and she had some synths. I'm like, these sound very Joy Division to me. And she had Bernard Sumner's amp, which I played through on Swim, and
all right.
So there's sounds on that really remind me of kind of late 70s, early 80s. And I think some of them were from Strawberry Studio. So who knows who's played on those things. So that's kind of fun when you find a bit of gear that you think, well, the history of this thing is, kind of a mystery as well.
A stream of numbers hit a screen, and you're expected to know what they mean. Throughout the conflict, I was serene. I can't outrun the sadness I've seen.
We're talking about, obviously, Maximum Pact, the 21st anniversary since the first singles. How would you compare recording this album that you just recorded now to the first single that you recorded? I think it was a 300 copy red vinyl double A side. A lot of people talk about it being another single, but I think the first single that you recorded probably was Graffiti and Going Missing. It was like a double A side vinyl. I'm quite curious how you remember that compared to how you approached recording this time around, because it's quite DIY kitchen sink as well this time now, by the sounds of it, a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, when I recorded the very first two, I think I had maybe 3, possibly 4 mics. So I had like one dangling above the drum kit. I don't know if you remember, there used to be a shop called Tandy in the UK.
Yeah, I do remember. It was like Comet and those kind of things. No,
yeah. So one was a Tandy mic, and one was I think we had a SM58, which was like the best mic that we had, and then the others were sort of really cheap kind of mics, or ones that friends had lent us. So I'd use, I'd do the drum kit. I think I had a couple of mics, and then I would try and get the bass and the guitar, and there were ways that I could get them, split them up and do them separately, but they're mainly on, I think, 8 tracks maximum, maybe less than that, maybe 6 tracks. So I was kind of very limited when we started with what gear we had. So they definitely have this lo-fi sort of quality, particularly those first 2. I guess the difference now is that some better microphones, but they're not that I've not ever, we've never spent anything crazy on gear, because I always feel like you can actually capture what you need with with at least decent things. And I quite like, there's something about if you're quite minimal with your gear and the way you do it, you can kind of, I think if you have too much choice, it can almost spoil it in a way.
Talking of Maximo Park, I saw recently, I think it was Lucas, I think he posted on Instagram that you'd got together just recently again for just to hang about more than anything. Is that true? Do you still hang out quite a bit?
Yeah, well, he lives in Australia now, so he came
He's in
back.
Australia. I think is he originally from Huddersfield? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's
yeah,
where
yeah.
I'm from. Yeah, because I think I saw him with the Huddersfield T-shirt on sometimes. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. He's a Huddersfield Town fan, so.
Right. But he's moved to Australia now. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. His wife Emma's Australian, so they moved out there. So he's So when he came back, we went to the Cumberland Arms, which is a pub in Newcastle, and we caught up there. So yeah, it's nice to see him. But every now and then. But I think it's tricky, coming all that way. So it's every few years. But yeah, we're all still mates. There's a little kind of group that we're on, like a WhatsApp thing, which is just occasionally we'll send like some kind of funny thing or music thing,
Brilliant. And then I'm obviously you're promoting this album now, but I imagine, you've got a few Maximo Park live dates, you've got festival dates coming up. Is there anything in the works, RE Maximo Park, or is that something that you still not kind of you still been focusing on this solo project and then festivals, and then after that maybe you'll kind of get back into writing as a group again?
Well, we're looking at doing some anniversary stuff like around. Right. Yeah, so that's kind of what the plan is. So I think there's going to be an announcement in the next couple of weeks, but it's to do with some shows, and a kind of a special re-release of the record. So I don't think it's been announced yet, but I can tell you it's fine. So yeah, that's what's happening, and then I think we'll see where things are. So the other band I'm in, Nano Kino, we're recording at the moment, so we're going to try and get a record out. So that's the next kind of thing that's lined up in terms of new music, and then we'll see after that. Yeah, so
brilliant. Can't wait. Well, I can't wait to. So when you said that you're going to be re-releasing an anniversary album, is that going to be just something that is going to be remastered or something, or will it be maybe some special surprises? There's some re-recordings or something, or can you not say about that yet?
Well, it's there's going to be, let's say, we're actually we had the album remastered on the 10-year anniversary, and actually well, it's kind of my fault really. I preferred the original master, and I said we should release it as we wanted to release, as we had it, and then but it will come with some bonus material and a few bits not heard and a few demos and a few sessions and stuff, I think. So yeah, there'll be sort of a little bit of collector's stuff. Yeah.
Really, I can't wait for that. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your time. I'm sorry about the glitch. So I don't know. Blame it on the sun.
Yeah,
thanks for your time.
Yeah,
really good to speak to you. And I wish you a great summer and a great lot of festivals that you've got lined up. And I hope to speak to you again sometime soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Howard.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cheers, Duncan. Take care of yourself.
All the best.
Cheers now.
See
Bye
you.
now.
Bye now.